Hi, I'm Paloma Guzmán, and I am an actor.
And I always like to start out with this question because it is probably the easiest one. When did this hit for you? When did you decide you wanted to pursue a career in the entertainment industry?
That's a great question, and I think like so many people in the industry, for me, it goes back to having really amazing theater educators. So, I was always really fortunate to be in school programs, public school, where the theater educators were really dedicated. And particularly in my middle and high school years, I had two awesome teachers who kind of like pushed the envelope of what they thought middle and high school kids were capable of doing. So that sparked my interest. It was always something I was involved in and really enjoyed doing and getting to take on these roles as a teenager that, you don't get to do. It's not your traditional sort of uh, high school setup. But one day I was in my theater teacher's classroom and he was going through a copy of American Theater Magazine and he saw an ad for Carnegie-Mellon and he was like, "You should apply here." And I had no idea Carnegie-Mellon even had a theater program at that point in my life. And I wasn't applying anywhere for theater or acting. And so I was like, okay. And that was the only school I auditioned for. And when I got there, I remember sitting in the waiting room in Pittsburgh with my mom, and they were going over like how many kids audition, how many kids get in. And I was like, oh, this is a real thing. Like this isn't just some whim. And I remember thinking I'll never get in, and then having this incredible audition experience where I just felt like I was treated like such a professional, and we worked so hard on these pieces, and I really at that point really wanted to get in. And I was really lucky, and then I got in. And so that was kind of a big turning point for me because it wasn't something that I was planning on doing with my life at all. And in that moment, I was like, no, wait, maybe I can do this. And that's really what set it all off. And I've told those teachers at Carnegie Mellon, you know, you guys changed the course of my life because I wouldn't have been doing this had you not seen something in me at 17 that I kind of wanted and kind of loved. But you guys said, no, let's do this. So that's how I got into it. It all started right there. And from then I've just been very fortunate to keep doing it.
Wow. So I have to ask, what was your other route? If you weren't pursuing this as a career, what were you planning on doing instead?
Yeah, I was always a really big nerd. So straight A's, like very involved in school, head of the like National Honor Society. So I was going pre-med. Like that's 100% what would have happened. I would have totally, my parents are physicians. One of my brothers is a physician. So like that is absolutely what I would have been had I not made a sharp left turn.
Yeah. But all of that dedication to your studies, I mean, I have a lot of theater friends who've gone to, similar schools, and the amount of just, I don't want to say breaking down, but, reshaping your approach to being a performing artist is insane and stuff that I never imagined. So I'm sure that came in handy for you. Oh yeah, I can do this. It's fine.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always tell young actors is the more well-rounded you can be, the more you can know about the world, the more you can just experience life and educate yourself on stuff. Like the best actors are the ones who do a lot of homework and then let it go, right? So having that curiosity, that natural sort of interest and curiosity in things outside of yourself and like the literal craft is always going to add to your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially with the I don't know, just the amount of rehearsal time you have for theater specifically. I mean, you get a chance to just cover that backwards and forwards. I mean, while you were studying at Carnegie, at any point were you thinking, I'll do this and then, maybe I'll go back to pre-med, or you were pretty hard set at, okay, I'll graduate with this and then, what was that like for you? Because that is a really, really sharp turn.
Well, my dad was always like, "Can you please sign up for computer science class while you're there? You should be taking computer science classes while you're there." And I did. So freshman year and sophomore year, you have like in the acting option at that time, you had to take some elective classes. So I took like anatomy and physiology. I took a social and decision science course, and I continued to kind of explore science and all of these amazing things that Carnegie Mellon has to offer outside of their incredible school of drama. But once you start to get into the later years, you're really just like, there is no room in the program for there's not very much room, I'll say, in the program for anything outside of what you're doing. It really is that conservatory style training, which is incredible when you're in it. There's truly nothing like it.
Mhm.
And I think once I was probably like around that time, junior year, when I was like fully enmeshed in it, I think I was like, no, this is it. This is what I'm doing. 100%. There's no turning back now, and there has not been.
No. Well, after graduation, you're outside of that very sort of supportive, just heavily involved environment. What was going through your head day after graduation when you now have to go audition and, look for work, look for reps? It's always a
Yeah.
very daunting time.
It is. There's a very steep learning curve, you know. I think auditioning is a skill, right? It's something that you learn to do. And truly, it's one of those skills like swimming where you only get better if you do it over and over again, you know. It's not something I think you can have sort of an innate ability to do it well, but there's so much you learn while doing. So after I graduated, I was really lucky to get out of school and have wonderful reps and, you know, the opportunity to just have many auditions, and the industry was different at the time. You know, everything was in person, and
Yeah.
you'd be running around all over. I When I graduated, I moved to New York. You're running up and down Midtown and from one place to the other, trying to make meetings and appointments and generals, and you know, and that in itself was an education, just getting in those rooms. And then that next step when you finally get on set and learning what does it mean like to be on a set? What are all the different technical components of being on set? And again, something you don't really learn until you're doing it on the job. So
Yeah.
I was really lucky to be, I think, placed in a put in a position where I graduated and I felt confident about what my work was, and then having the opportunity to put it into practice and then learn how to audition and learn how to work really.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to work on short films or other, film and television sets before, working on, let's say, like a union-based set while you're at Carnegie?
So we had a TV acting class there, and they have a TV studio at Carnegie-Mellon, and we had a faculty member who had directed a lot of television soap operas and that TV show Wishbone. That's from a long time ago, but
What?
yeah, he directed episodes of Wishbone, which we all thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we got to film ourselves and watch our tapes back, and we had, you know, workshops with professionals come in and do that kind of stuff. But truly, nothing is like the experience of being on a set. And my first professional job was a union job. So it was overwhelming. You just
Yeah.
feel like there's so much going on. Like, make sure I don't step on the track for the camera, and where's the boom so I don't like accidentally turn into the boom guy. And, you know, there's just a lot of this stuff that's going on outside of your performance. So learning how to kind of use your brain in two ways at the same time, I think
Yeah.
is something that you can only learn when you do it.
What was that first set?
My first job was Law and Order, of course, like any
Oh,
good New York actor.
yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, yeah, and it was wonderful. The cast and crew were absolutely amazing, and that's a really fortunate place to start because it's such a well-oiled machine. So like you are a piece of the puzzle, and everything is super. You know, everyone knows their job, and everyone is there to help you. You know, and you just feel like you're like, oh, okay, everyone's got this, so I can focus on me. And if I need anything, you know, there's so many industry vets around here who most people are very happy to help.
Yeah, it is funny having that flip on your first union set experience, right? Of, oh, they're not looking at me to know everything. They're here to corral me because they
Yeah,
know.
in some ways, yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially as a young actor, but
Yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
that's so cool. And it sounds like, your father obviously wanted you to take computer science courses or, still venture out into something that traditionally would be known as being a little more stable. But after, graduating and starting to book jobs and you have representation, did your parents sort of come around to fully supporting your artistic career? Or is there still,
Yeah.
those forwarding
No,
emails?
they were always, yeah, right. No, I've been really fortunate. They were always extremely
Oh,
supportive.
good.
And I think that a lot of those types of comments come from fear, right? Because you don't want your kids to be, like you said, in a place that feels unstable, financially or professionally. And I think that being in this industry in any part of it, it's a roller coaster and you go through highs and lows and there's feast and famine. And so learning to negotiate that and learning to tell the people around you, like, it's okay, I got this. Like, I know this is part of it and I'm built for this. I can do this is important. So I think that they have always been confident in my abilities, but I think that over time, what they have become confident in is my ability to sort of weather the storm. And I think that's important too.
Absolutely. And especially when those valleys get so deep and dry, or,
Hmm.
there's pandemic or there's a strike that you're supporting, but also, you need to pay your bills. What
Absolutely.
what sort of day jobs have you taken? There's so many different ones I've never heard of before until I started this show.
Oh,
But
I'm sure.
yeah, what have you done to pay your bills when you haven't been on set?
Oh my gosh. I worked when I first got out of college. I was a front desk agent concierge at a hotel in Times Square, which was like so much fun as a new New Yorker because it just afforded me a lot of opportunities to kind of get to know the city I was living in. It was also a really great way to practice that acting, hone in my skill because I didn't know a lot about the city. People were coming to me like, well, what should I do? Where should I go? Blah, blah, blah. So, um, kind of fake it till you make it in that job. And then from then on, I've kind of mostly just had sort of sporadic, weird jobs. I mean, have worked as an executive assistant when I was living in LA. I used to work at a pop-up restaurant and I ran the cheese cart. So it was this French chef that did all these pop-ups in LA. And he had this incredible cheese cart with all of these cheeses imported from France. And I like took it upon myself to become the cheese lady and learned about all the different cheeses. And so I was the one like coming around with the cart and like giving, what would you like? What are you interested in? Like, let me tell you about this cheese from this part of France. So that was one of the more fun jobs. Yeah, I mean, I handed out at one point, I remember handing out flyers in Grand Central Station for something, all sorts of odd jobs here and
Wow.
there. But I've been pretty fortunate that like the acting has sustained me most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a spot where you can go from film and TV one day to theater. So are you still hanging on to your love for theater, your passion for theater, and pursuing, further roles on stage?
Absolutely. There's something so special about working in theater. It's something that I really love and miss have not having done it in a while. I miss it. The type of community and ensemble building that happens in that space is so incredibly special and so unique to just that field. I've been on shows for extended amount of times, television shows for extended amount of times, or some longer film sets, and you do build a lot of community. But like a lot of times with theater, you're all in the room all the time, so it's a really incredible, special place. And I definitely, I'm always down to do a play, always.
What's your go-to genre? Are you more of a comedic? You more dramatic, experimental?
I think I get a lot of I find myself doing a lot of dramatic roles, but I love doing comedy. My husband's also an actor. We met in college, and he is an improv comedy guy. He teaches improv comedy. He, has done all the UCB stuff and back in LA, and so it's really fun to get to work with him. Like it's like having an acting coach, and especially with the comedy, we just really get to enjoy whenever we get those scripts. Like he's my first person to go to. I'm like, all right, how do we do this? Let's make this funny. What are we working towards? So, I really enjoy and I feel really fortunate because I think that I've been able to do both. Like I remember um getting to work on Broad City, which was just like the funniest thing ever and so much fun. And then, like you also get to do Law and Order SVU. So it's just I just feel really lucky that I've gotten to do most of them. But I think that most of the time people see me as a dramatic actor.
And I mean, hey, it's nice to have both of those tools. And living and having a life with somebody who knows comedy is always just so
Yeah,
rewarding.
totally.
it, I love hearing that, two artistic couples live in the same, or I'm sorry, two people are in a couple living in a house where there's self tapes and callbacks and all that sort of stuff. What is it like living with another creative, especially when you can give notes to each other? What's it like navigating
That's a good question.
that?
I feel really fortunate because I have a lot of friends who are partnered with you know, creatives or non people who are not in the industry. And I know that it can be very taxing to make self tapes because you have to find a reader or you have to find a space or you have to ask your partner and then your partner, is exhausted because they've worked their, 8+ hours at their banking job or whatever. And that's a difficult negotiation. So I know how lucky I am that I have a reader in my living room, right? And a person who's going to tell me, no, that lighting looks terrible, or, I think that you should do this, wear this top instead, stuff like that. That being said, we have creative differences, like that is a part of it. I'm sure my friends who are taping with their partners who are not in the industry don't have somebody being like, I wouldn't make that choice. Well, are you sure that this is what you think? So it's those moments are not constant, but they are there. But after having done this together, my partner and I, my husband and I have been together for 15 years now. Um, we have a shorthand, and
Yeah.
he's talked about it because he teaches and coaches a lot. And so he's like, it's funny when I go and I coach and other actors, I, I've come to realize how much I just say one thing to you and all of a sudden we're in the direction that I think we should be moving in. So we do have a shorthand, which I think helps also just make the tape making process more efficient.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's not two egos clashing. It's, you're genuinely there to help each other.
Yes, totally.
Oh, that's beautiful. Especially talking about tapes as well. I'm not sure how it is in New York City, or I haven't done a whole lot of theater, but I do wonder now that self tapes are more common, are you able to go in for in-person auditions for theater, or is it more of a self tape, half and half now? What is it? What's changed in that sort of part of the industry, at least in the last couple of years?
My experience has been that in the last few years, it's sort of been a half and half, right? So
Okay,
maybe that
yeah,
first audition is a self tape, and then the callback will be in the room, which is great. And I think that's important because I think ultimately in film and TV, the final product is what you're looking at in a tape. So as much as I have my own thoughts about self tapes versus in person, I think I understand why the industry has sort of maintained that approach for film and television. For theater, I think it's much more difficult to cast somebody off a tape. It's possible, but I think you want to see this person in the room. You want to see energetically where they are, their physicality, all of those other things that someone can bring to live performance on stage. So I think most theater auditions have moved to in the room, at least for sure for the second, for a callback or further down the line, certainly, which is a good thing. I'm hopeful that we will start going back to the room because I think that it's part of why you do it. You do it to be in conversation, in a creative conversation with someone else, right? I mean, at least that was always something that brought me a lot of joy in auditioning is I have my take on it, but I love getting feedback and I love working with directors and I love being introduced to a perspective that maybe I hadn't thought of and figuring out in the moment how I can transform my work and my choices to go more in the vein of what this other creative person is bringing to the table. So that's something that I really miss about the self tape world. But it certainly made a lot of things more convenient, and I think it has made a lot of auditioning more accessible to people, which is a good thing.
Yeah, that's been a great part. But you're exactly right. There, you don't feel that energy anymore, and now it almost feels like you're sending in those dating tapes from the 80s and 90s to a service. It's like, well, maybe I'll hear back. I don't know. It's a toss
Right.
up, but I mean, speaking from somebody who fell into this industry and I've mainly worked on camera, I can't imagine going into a theatrical audition in person and what sort of characters and talents you see there. Is there a different energy when you're going to audition for an in person, theater, audition compared to, say, a commercial or something for Law and Order? I mean, what's the energy there? It has to be so potent, I would think, at least.
I think it's actually more similar to auditioning for commercials than it is
Really? Okay.
for on camera because there is sort of, yes, there is this kind of vibrancy in the room, which I find a lot of in on camera commercial auditions. I don't know if that's been your experience, but like because so much of on camera commercial stuff is improvisation, there's kind of like an
Yeah.
energy of like, okay, what's coming, what's coming. And I think that you can find that a lot in theatrical auditions. I don't do musicals, so I can't speak to like what the energy is in those rooms, but it is, you know, it's very alive.
Yeah.
And I think that the on camera stuff is in its own way, but it also feels sometimes very focused. People are kind of in their own world. Now, that being said, New York pre COVID, pre pandemic is such a small community. So that's another thing that I miss, right? When you go to those rooms, you're going to see people you're
For
going to see
sure.
people you've worked with on a set, or you met in a class, or you just know socially, and or somebody whose work you admire because you've seen them in something. And so that's another part of the community building aspect that I really miss. And that I think you get in all of the mediums, right? Film, TV, commercials,
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah, that's God, that's a great way to put it. I just now I'm like hankering for an in-person audition, which I know won't it's not gonna happen in Denver anytime soon, or New Mexico, but
Oh, where in
yeah.
Mexico? Or do
Well,
you go to New Mexico to
I
audition or
yeah, I mean, well, before COVID, you would drive the 6 hours for the audition.
really?
Yeah, and then come
Wow,
back
in
up.
Albuquerque?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Oh
not a
my
bad drive.
goodness.
It's beautiful.
I'm sure it is. I was
Yeah.
really lucky and I worked in New Mexico and I absolutely fell in love with it and I want to go back so badly. I mean, it's just
Oh
such a
yeah.
beautiful place, and there's so much great stuff I mean, there was so much great stuff that gets shot down there. It's such a cool place to
It's
film.
great. If you get a chance to go down there, I guess at this point now it's probably halfway done, but Netflix has their huge studio lot just outside of Albuquerque, and it is insane how large this place is. It's its own
Wow.
compound. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so
Um,
cool.
but yeah, before COVID, it was, hey, you have an audition for, let's say, Breaking Bad or something.
Uh-huh.
You would drive down, audition, and then come back, and then you would just wait. And you might get, if you get a callback, it would be maybe 24 hours before the callback appointment slot. So it was a little insane. Now I'm thankful I can just, record, take a break from work, and then go back to my day job and not have to really worry about it. But yeah, it's awesome that we can send things in through a tape, but yeah, I do miss that energy being in the room. And I was just talking to somebody about it last week. The energy that you bring to your performance and your character and your audition is so different to the next person. And a
Mm.
lot of the times that would, I don't know, be a gold star for them under your name. Say, oh, well, let's bring them back, if not for this, for something else, right?
Yes, I think that most of my relationships were built on auditions I wasn't right for,
Yeah.
parts I wasn't necessarily going to get, especially early in my career. Uh, but I did something, right? You
Yeah.
bring your own take to it and that sparks something in someone else that goes, "Hey, that was interesting and different. You're not right for this. You're not getting this job." But like we really enjoyed seeing you and having you in the room and so much of my career has come out of I think people having those moments where they're like, you're really not right for this, but we'll bring you in for this. And I know that's said so often by casting directors and other actors that that's just how it works. And I feel a little sad for this next generation of people who are coming into the business that they're maybe not having those experiences because what you see on the tape is what you see, and you don't necessarily get to have those moments. I'm hopeful they'll come back, or I'm hopeful we can find other ways to foster that type of experience
Absolutely.
for newer actors. But you're right, like it's a lot of who you are and what you bring into the space and into the room that can really make a difference for you.
Yeah. And it's always nice to hear I don't know, the CD reaches out and says, "Oh yeah, hey, I remember you. It's been a while, and it was an audition you had 10 years ago."
Right.
It's just insane how great their memories are. Um, but yeah, with actually with that being said, you have to have some. I would think you'd have to have something working and living in New York. But if you have a party story you could share with our listeners? So not something that happens at a party, but maybe an experience you've had in your career, whether it's auditioning, working on sets, or I don't know, meeting somebody of note that you wouldn't expect in a random place that you could easily tell friends at a party. Just a really pivotal moment in your career that you always think about. Do you have anything you might be able to lean back on?
That's a good question. I have to kind of think about that. A party story. No, I
And
mean,
we could pivot it to really bad or really good auditions too. That's always the backup.
that's always the backup. Yeah, really
Yeah.
bad or really good auditions.
Yeah.
Um, those are also. I don't think I've ever had a really bad audition. I think I've been really lucky, and I've always had a very good. I mean, I've certainly had auditions where I don't feel like I've done great. Something didn't go the way I wanted it
Oh,
to,
of
and
course.
you just beat yourself up for 6 days after.
Yeah.
Um, but but nothing where you're like, oh, that was really bad. Um, I can't. I mean, it's sort of funny stories about auditions. I did have an audition. I remember going to an audition once for a. I mean, it was a guest star, and I did the audition, and the director was like, okay, but your hair, it doesn't look like your headshot. Because like my hair, I think in my headshot, my hair was like much curlier. And I was like, okay. And he was like, can you find a way to make your hair like in your headshot? And I was like, what? And so I remember going into the waiting room, and it was close to the holidays. And I went to the front desk and I was like, this is such a random question, but the director really wants my hair to be curly. And they're like, oh, we just had our holiday party last night and somebody left. We have a bunch of like curling irons left over. So I went into the bathroom. I was like, I'll be back. And so I curled my hair for 20 minutes, went back, did the audition. He was like, okay. And I got the job. And I remember
Oh,
thinking,
good.
is this only about my hair? This is so ridiculous. It was kind of a bizarre moment. I didn't quite understand why the hair was so pivotal, but I guess it was. And I don't even think it was curly when we did it in real, like when we actually shot it. I don't actually think they curled my hair. That's just a random funny story about auditioning.
But you booked the job, thankfully, after all of that.
Yes, 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 yes. Thankfully, after all of that.
You work with some very interesting people in this industry that
You do. You
I
do.
yeah, that I wouldn't be surprised if, maybe five or six other people I talked to would have that exact same story.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Oh, your hair was
Yeah.
parted from the right, not the. Could you go do that? I can't even fathom
Yeah.
you right now.
Yeah,
Um,
when I first got out of school, I remember another hair story. I went in for a general at one of the networks, and then I had worn my hair in a ponytail because I think the sides were a cop. So I was like, oh, and the casting director was like, don't ever do that. We need to know if you have TV hair. And I was like, this is okay. Again, who knew
well,
hair was so important? So, I mean, I still pull my hair back if I'm going in for like a cop or something in the military, and that was
yeah.
advice that I kind of took with a grain of salt. But people have opinions, strong opinions in this business.
Yeah, and most of the time, hopefully, it's not about you. It's something else they went through, and now they need to control something.
I guess
Uh,
so.
that is, I will mention really quick, and this was years ago. I went into an audition, and they really wanted to know what ethnicity I was, so they can be incredibly authentic. And it wasn't anything native or something that has to do with indigenous cultures. It was
Uh huh.
so pinpointed. Like, no, I don't know what to tell you, but do you want me to audition or is that like, oh yeah, just keep going. We just want to know. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I know I'm running a little low on time, so I gotta wrap it up. This new 30-minute time limit is a great goal, but my God. I want to see as one of the last things to discuss here is if you have anything as far as advice goes that you could pass along to anyone performing right now or seeking to perform, whether they're young, up and coming actors, veteran actors, or people who are just trying to keep going the way things are changing right now. If you have anything that you've held on to that you could pass along to them.
It's a really tough time to be in this industry. A lot has changed. And with all the uncertainty in the world right now, I mean, my God, the fires in Los Angeles have been absolutely devastating, and I'm my heart just goes out to everybody who's been affected, and so many members of our community have been very, very tragically affected by them. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. Um, I think the most important thing is to, I know I've said this word a lot, but it matters, is to find community, right? I mean, to really build up those people around you who are going to support you. I've been very fortunate that my dear, dear friends that I made at Carnegie-Mellon are still my dear, dear friends. And nothing makes me happier and more proud than to celebrate their successes. Truly, it's a way for you to just hold on to why you guys all started doing this in the first place, right? Because you love to tell stories, because you believe in the art and the craft and all those other sort of like esoteric things that maybe we don't talk about when we're talking about like film and TV. But there's a reason why everyone, especially when you start at 17, why we all got into this. And so those moments where you get to support, I went to see a friend's big film premiere the other day, and it was just like the most amazing thing ever to get to see her on screen, having known her for so long. You know, I have a friend who's going to do a workshop of something and I want to go see that. So those moments where you can find the people who you are going to build up and who are going to build you up and support you, I think that's the only way you're going to get through it. You can't get through it alone. It takes a village. Like find your people and be creative together, because otherwise it can be a very lonely and isolating career unless you have that community, I think.
Yeah, that is crucial, especially right now.
Hmm.
And it, you know, it segues very nicely into if there's anything you'd like for us to promote with this episode, a charity, organization, a project you have coming up, anything that comes to mind. You have something we can give a shout out to?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I certainly the funds, the wildfire funds in LA, you know, are a massive thing that we should all be giving our time. And I think I know that LA and Angelinos have turned out so hard for each other, and it's been really incredible to see. So I know that a lot of organizations right now are just looking for monetary donations. They have a ton of stuff that they can give, but really what we're going to have to do is help people rebuild their lives. So if you want to give a shout out to that, I'm 100% behind it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it warmed my heart hearing that. Oh, we have enough supplies.
Yeah.
We
We
need
just
some
need
more
money now.
money.
Yeah, totally.
That was the best. This was fantastic. I'm so glad I got a chance to talk to you and hear your story. I know I have like 2 minutes left, but the last thing we do before I stop the recording is what I like to call an awkward goodbye. So this is verbal and visual, one or the two. But whenever you're ready, give me your best verbal or visual, both awkward goodbye, and I'll stop the recording from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you.